The wildest thing about this entire Beyond the Gates storyline isn't the stolen plasma. It's the fact that Leslie still believes she's the smartest person in every room, even while the floor is collapsing underneath her. And honestly, that's exactly why this plot is working. Because beneath all the chaos, the intimidation, the manipulation, and the hospital scandal, this storyline is really about one thing: panic. Controlled panic. The kind that makes dangerous people become even more dangerous. Leslie is terrified right now. Not emotionally shattered, not morally conflicted. Terrified financially, strategically, socially. And the difference matters. Let's unpack this because there's way more happening here than a simple hospital crisis. At the center of the disaster is the plasma theft scandal, an event that already damaged public trust, threatened two hospitals, and exposed just how unstable the entire system really is. Normally, a scandal like this would make investors nervous. That's the obvious reading. So Leslie immediately jumps to the conclusion that Joey might pull his funding. But here's where the writing becomes interesting. I don't think Joey ever planned to withdraw. Not for a second. In fact, I think Leslie completely misunderstands the kind of man Joey actually is. Because legitimate investors run from scandals. People running illegal operations run towered vulnerability. That hospital is more useful to Joey now than ever before. And once you look at the story through that lens, Leslie's behavior suddenly becomes almost tragic. She's scrambling, bribing, begging for information, trying to save a deal that was never truly in danger. She's acting like the plasma theft weakened Joey's interest when it may have strengthened his leverage. That changes everything. It means Leslie isn't protecting her empire. She's accidentally giving away pieces of it. Voluntarily, out of fear. And this is where the Randy scenes become surprisingly important. At first glance, Randy looks like a minor character in this situation, just another shady middleman holding information. But the scene between him and Leslie actually says a lot about how people in Fairmont Crest see her now. Leslie approaches Randy believing money can solve the problem. That's classic Leslie behavior. She assumes everyone has a price because she always does. Morality, loyalty, ethics, reputation to her, these are flexible tools, not boundaries. But Randy refuses, not because he's a good person. Let's be clear here. Randy is absolutely not some moral hero suddenly taking a stand against corruption. The show wisely avoids making him overly noble. His refusal is more practical than ethical. He knows Joey would never approve. And more importantly, he knows Leslie is bad business. That line from Randy about being tired of women like Leslie was brutally satisfying. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. It's one of the few moments where somebody in this world looked directly at Leslie without fear, without fascination, and without manipulation. Just exhaustion. That's powerful because most people around Leslie either hate her passionately or fear her influence. Randy does neither. He sees her as predictable, a chaotic person who leaves destruction behind her and expects other people to clean it up. And if we're being honest, he's not wrong. Leslie has spent so much time weaponizing desperation that she doesn't realize when she becomes the desperate one. Watching her try to pressure Randy felt different from her usual manipulative victories. There was a crack in her confidence this time, a visible one. The irony is almost painful. Leslie thinks she's managing a crisis, but everybody else can smell that she's spiraling. And Randy's rejection matters because it exposes something Leslie rarely faces: social irrelevance. Think about it. Fear only works when people believe you still have power. The moment Randy decided he had more to lose from Joey than from Leslie, her influence weakened instantly. That's the real humiliation here, not the insult itself. The realization that her name no longer guarantees obedience. That's a dangerous place for someone like Leslie. especially in Fairmont Crest, where reputation is basically currency. And this is where the story quietly becomes smarter than people may realize. Because the show isn't simply portraying Leslie as a villain, it's portraying her as someone addicted to control. There's a difference. Villains enjoy destruction. Leslie enjoys outcomes. She wants results, stability on her terms, success on her terms. That's why insults don't really affect her emotionally. People constantly underestimate this aspect of her character. They think public embarrassment should break her. But Leslie's ego doesn't function like normal pride. She can survive humiliation if it gets her closer to her goal. That's what makes her dangerous. Most people retreat after being rejected. Leslie recalculates. So when Randy shuts her down, she doesn't collapse emotionally. She simply searches for another route. And then Ava appears. Now, this is where the storyline becomes layered. Because Eva's involvement completely changes the emotional temperature of the narrative, up until this point, everything around Leslie feels transactional. Bribes, secrets, leverage, panic, reputation management. Then suddenly Ava enters the story carrying something almost nobody else has offered lately: sincerity. Not blind loyalty, not manipulation, actual compassion. And I think that contrast is intentional. Eva helping Leslie isn't about agreement. It's about conscience. That distinction matters. She knows Leslie didn't create the plasma disaster. She knows the hospital could collapse under the pressure. And despite Leslie's history, Eva still doesn't want to see years of work destroyed by chaos and revenge. Honestly, I think Ava may currently be the emotional backbone of this entire arc. Not because she's the loudest character, because she's the only one thinking long term. While everybody else is reacting emotionally, strategically, or selfishly, Eva is trying to preserve something functional. The hospital matters to her beyond money or power. That gives her scenes real emotional weight. And Ted's role in all this deserves attention too, because Ted's conversation with Eva revealed something subtle but incredibly important: respect. He doesn't order her. He doesn't guilt her. He doesn't emotionally manipulate her into helping Leslie. Instead, he asks what she wants. That sounds small, but in a soap world full of coercion, emotional games, and hidden agendas, that kind of communication stands out immediately. Ted recognizes that Ava is about to overextend herself emotionally and physically. He supports her instinct to help, but he also worries about the cost. That's mature writing. It's not just good guy supports woman. It's a character acknowledging that compassion without boundaries can become self-destruction. And I think Ava is dangerously close to that line. Because let's be honest, Eva is trying to save everyone at once. She doesn't want Garland Hospital to suffer. She doesn't want Leslie to collapse. She doesn't want the plasma scandal to destroy lives. She doesn't want people's work to disappear. That's admirable, but also risky. People like Eva often become emotional collateral in stories like this because they assume responsibility for damage they didn't create. Sound familiar? In a strange way, Eva and Leslie are mirrors of each other right now. Leslie believes she can control chaos through manipulation. Eva believes she can stabilize chaos through sacrifice. Both women are trying to hold together systems already cracking apart. The difference is motivation. Leslie acts from fear of losing power. Eva acts from fear of losing people. That contrast is the heart of the storyline. And here's the twist I keep coming back to. What if Joey understands both of them perfectly? Seriously, think about it. If Joey truly has illegal business interests connected to the hospital, then this entire crisis benefits him in multiple ways. Public confusion creates opportunities. Desperate leadership becomes easier to manipulate. Divided alliances weaken resistance. Meanwhile, Leslie panics. Eva overworks herself. Randy distances himself. The hospital destabilizes. And Joey? Invisible. That's the scary part. The most dangerous person in the storyline may actually be the calmest one. Because chaos always empowers the person who prepared for it. Now, I do think the show risks one potential weakness here, credibility. There's a fine line between Leslie is desperate and Leslie suddenly loses all strategic intelligence. If the writers push her panic too far, it could undermine the sharpness that made her compelling in the first place. Leslie making mistakes is believable. Leslie becoming foolish is not. That distinction matters. Her attempt to bribe Randy worked because it felt emotionally driven but still logical. She needed information quickly. Joey's silence scared her. Fair enough. But if the show keeps making Leslie fail repeatedly without adapting intelligently, the character could lose complexity. And honestly, Beyond the Gates is strongest when its villains remain competent. Smart enemies create smart drama. Still, I think the current direction is effective because Leslie's mistakes are rooted in character psychology, not lazy writing. Her greatest flaw has always been overconfidence in transactional power. She believes pressure can solve uncertainty. But uncertainty is exactly what can't be controlled, especially when Joey's involved. And maybe that's the real point of this entire arc. Not the plasma theft, not the investment, not even the hospital. It's about what happens when people who built their lives around control suddenly realize they are no longer controlling the game. Leslie feels it. Randy recognizes it. Eva is trying to survive it. Ted is quietly preparing for it. And Joey? He may have engineered the board from the beginning. That's why this storyline feels more compelling than a standard soap scandal. Underneath the drama, there's a surprisingly sharp theme about power structures, dependency, and emotional survival. The characters aren't just reacting to events, they're revealing who they are when stability disappears. And personally, I think the most dangerous moment hasn't happened yet. It'll happen when Leslie finally realizes Joey was never scared of the scandal at all. Because the second she understands that, she'll also understand she was never his partner. She was just another investment.